people who are fleeing Syria are the most harmed by terrorism. They are the most vulnerable as a consequence of civil war and strife.
There once was a time when America and every other civilized nation welcomed immigrants. Here in America, the Italians, the Irish, Cubans, Chinese, those from the African continent, and every other slice of land on earth, they are what has made America great. There's no doubting that. But times have changed. An overpopulated planet, despot governments, mounting murders in the name of a god. The crossroads is here and staring us in the face, reflected in the pools of blood on Parisian streets. We and many other nations cannot do business as usual. The stakes have changed, and we can no longer afford to welcome in the tired, the hungry, and the poor, because when even one of them wants to come here and kill innocents, that's one too many. First up, national security analyst for the Clarion Project, Ryan Mauro, joined by the now retired senior special agent at the Immigration and Naturalization Service, Michael Cutler. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. And Michael, this one's going to come to you on what
Sure.
I just said. This is a nation built on immigrants. But is it not fair to say this is the 21st century? It is different. We can't just let everybody in anymore simply because of how societies have changed, how global edicts have changed, and how people have changed. Certainly, the Islamic terrorists wanting to kill anyone who walks or talks and doesn't say what they want them to.
Well, you're right, but here's the caveat. Our immigration laws were enacted to achieve two primary purposes: protect American lives and the jobs of American workers. When we are unable to vet the people who are coming here, or when we have people come in whose identities cannot be verified, whether it's because of the refugee program that, according to the FBI, is literally and figuratively fatally flawed. James Comey, head of the FBI, said that Syria is a failed state. There's no way of getting information out of that government. And quite frankly, that government won't cooperate with us. We want to depose their leader. To think that they're going to warn us about terrorists is foolish. And I want to put something quickly in perspective. The 19 terrorists who carried out 9/11 inflicted more casualties than the entire Japanese Navy on December 7th, 1941. If we get it wrong, just a fraction of 1%, and I think the likelihood is that it'll be a lot worse than that, we could be opening the door to thousands of terrorists. I don't even want to imagine what the consequences would be.
Speaking of that, Ryan, I want you to hear this. This is the president talking today, saying that the refugee crisis, in his opinion, should not be equated with terrorism. Here's what he said.
Even as we accept more refugees, including Syrians, we do so only after subjecting them to rigorous screening and security checks. We also have to remember that many of these refugees are the victims of terrorism themselves. That's what they're fleeing. Slamming the door in their faces would be a betrayal of our values.
All right, so Ryan, here we go, a nation of values. We have people who are victims, who want to come here. One side of that says, why are you bringing them halfway across the world? Why are you not trying to keep them where they live, where they're comfortable? Take care of Syria instead of trying to bring them here. And in the same breath, the president says rigorous screening. Is he kidding? There's even people in his own party who say that the screening is a joke in this country. So how do we keep our values and still be the good people around the world and still make sure that we don't let the terrorists in?
Well, Michael is hitting a very important point, which is about the vetting process, which I don't have faith in. And that's why I would say freeze bringing over the refugees in large numbers when you don't have an effective vetting process, because you're actually not helping the other Syrian refugees that would be threatened by any radicals that come in here. Now, among the Syrian refugees, I do believe that there are heroes. There are valuable allies among them. I know many Syrians involved that would fight tooth and nail against Islamic extremism. I have no problem with those type of people coming here, but the problem is that the vetting process does not exist to separate those from people who are already radical or likely to be radicalized in the future, which we have seen time and time again.
All right, now, on Sunday, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy was asking his government to put people who may have been radicalized under an intense level of surveillance. Quote, I suggest that we consider the possibility of placing the people under watch for radicalization under house arrest, place them at home with an electronic bracelet. Michael, is that even possible in America, or is that simply just wishful thinking?
Listen, extraordinary circumstances require extraordinary solutions. Here's my suggestion. You know, I provided testimony to the 9/11 Commission. Why aren't we using the 9/11 Commission as the starting point for any discussion about any immigration action. I've come to call comprehensive immigration reform the Terrorist Assistance and Facilitation Act for the same reason that we can't vet the terrorists. We can't vet people who evade the inspections process. We're paying one hell of a price. Senator Jeff Sessions, in fact, made a strong recommendation that we care for these people overseas, not bring them here. We'd get more bang for the buck. And at the same time, we would make certain not to undermine national security. In fact, I just wrote an article for capsweb.org. I called it false security worse than no security. Being told that we're vetting people that we can't vet by this president, that's false security in my judgment.
Ryan, 45 seconds left, though. We're talking about keeping them in Syria, keeping them in the Middle East, keeping them in their home. But I'm going to ask Ryan if it's just even possible if we can do this. We can't seem to get out of our way and come up with a real logical explanation here. Do we trust ourselves to be able to do even that?
Not with the way things are currently going, but it is something that's achievable. We need to stabilize the situation enough that they can stay there, closer to their homes, closer to their families, provide them with the humanitarian aid because we are a caring people. But at the same time, I wrote an article about a poll that was done in 2014 that by an Arab organization that found that 13% of Syrian refugees had positive feelings towards ISIS. So when you're dealing with numbers like that, it is a risk to bring them into places like Europe and the United States.
Gentlemen, I think we've hit on this one thing. We're out of time, but let's be honest. If one person comes through and one person kills innocents, it is one too many. And we have to understand that one time or another. Michael Cutler, Ryan Mauro, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. The three left-wing stooges and their excuses put into perspective by one leader who refused to surrender in the face of certain death. Next.